I think we really cling to nostalgia when it's really challenging times. Like, I feel like that makes sense just like biologically. If right now this moment sucks, we're going to mentally try and go back to a moment that didn't suck. And I think like being a kid in the 90s, I think it was the last decade where we didn't know what we didn't know. Like we weren't all up each other's asses with business of like, what are you doing and what are you thinking and everything. Like we didn't know most of what's going on the other side of the country or whatever. So we were kind of like this disconnect, and our capacity for knowing things was just like, oh, like everything's probably fine. And now we can go and look at everything and see how not fine everything is. And so I think that pining for the 90s is really right now in a time where there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of scarcity, a lot of things where people are like, I don't know what's going to be happening right now. And it's like, yeah, but we could come talk about Tamagotchis for a little while. And we can make those connects. We could talk about 90s movies and make those connects. I could talk about my childhood and the things that I remember from the 90s that I really like romanticize. And maybe there's something in that you could like. And
it's interesting that you said like unknowns, because it's like unknown back then. Like you said, we didn't know what we didn't know, but the tone of the unknown back then was like, it's really, that's the key. Like a lot of people will ask me, so Christy, like what's the deal with nostalgia? Why is it so important? But you're nailing it right now, which is really great for us to kind of unpack. And then have another couple laughs. Why not? But like for real, like unknown in that sense was like joyful in some ways. It felt like reckless abandon. So you could like a lot of people will say in our age range, like, I did a lot of crazy shit, but it wasn't documented. And it's like, that's what I'm talking about. It's your every moment wasn't, I guess, almost like waiting to go back online. Like I'm just waiting to go, is my phone charged yet? Like, can I use my phone? Like even my kids, which is crazy because I know you have a 2-year-old. It'll end up becoming screen time thing where there's a really great way to use screen time. And then it becomes, oh shit, now I need to manage screen time. So that they don't become, you know, I don't know, whatever, some Godzilla kid.
Whatever, a kid who's just constantly like 2 inches away from a screen all day.
And it's a fight, right? Even those kids might have good parents. I mean, you know, it's like, it's a fight. It's a reality. It's a reality.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. So that's the unknown. That was like why we all kind of like band together and have this like collective consciousness. Do you feel like other generations were nostalgic too, or is this like unique to millennials?
No, I mean, I feel like everybody is. I feel like we just got done reliving the 80s in a lot of ways. I feel like Gen X really has had a stranglehold on like, oh, 80s themed parties. We went to an 80s themed wedding last year for our friends. And so like
they were Gen X or?
Well, they were like right on the cusp. And so I was just like, okay, this makes sense.
And all their guests were like older.
Yes, exactly. So it made sense. And so being able to kind of go down that road and say like, okay, it seems like we always get to a point where, okay, let's go back and look at whenever the generation who's in their 30s and 40s seems to be running a lot of the stuff that's getting put out, it seems like they're going to go back to that time when they were a kid, and we just got out of it being the 80s. We're just now getting in the 90s. The thing though that's going to be interesting is seeing the nostalgia for like the early 2000s, because I feel like with the 90s, like you were talking about that unknown being kind of a little bit more having levity to it, having more positivity and optimism to the
like literally like quoting Ace Ventura, or like Adam Sandler movies, or like whatever.
I think it's because like we weren't to the future yet. The year 2000 seemed very like, ooh, the Jetsons and like
Y2K hit years later.
yes, it was a whole thing. We thought it was going to be the Jetsons on the other side of the 2000s. Turns out it's going to be a little bit more like the Flintstones. But yeah, man, I think the unknown of that, like when did Marty go Back to the Future? I think it was 2015. That was still in front of us, and so we still have all these pop culture like landmarks of like, oh, what's it going to be like then? And so many of those things were kind of wrong, and now things are going sideways in a lot of ways, and we're just like, oh, okay. So that's what makes me curious, like what is the nostalgia going to look like for the early 2000s? Because that's when things really started to pick up a different trajectory, and the year 2000 wasn't what we thought it was going to be.
No, I feel really bad for the younger generations because they don't have that, and sometimes I wonder, how do we help them through it?
Yeah.
How do we give them what we had?
I mean, conversation is important. And I feel like that's a really important thing that seems on paper stupid to say. But I also know like a lot of the older generations just really like shitting on the younger generations. Like, I don't have to throw a stick too far to get a boomer to be like, you're a millennial, you're lazy, you're this, you're that. And it's like...
Are they right, though? Maybe they're right.
I don't think they are, though. I don't. I think we just... And I was talking about this with your producer beforehand. I think millennials we work more efficiently. I think
we had to.
We
multitask.
had to. Yes. Yeah. We got multiple things going.
And they
at
were
once.
like 9 to 5, and then the weekend warrior, mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's just what they do. And we looked at, and that's the thing also that I think we missed out on being called millennials, not going with the alphabet, because it was like Gen X, and then now we've got Gen Z, and we got skipped and called millennials. Yeah, we should have been Gen Y.
Motherfuckers.
We could have been Generation Y.
Because we were shit on by everything and everyone.
And we were the first generation when the previous generation was like, this is how you do things. We were like, why? And they were like, don't ask questions. We didn't ask questions.
We all rebelled.
How dare you ask questions? So we were all just like, no,
I
this
don't think
doesn't
there's a
seem
single
efficient.
person I know that cannot relate to adolescent rebellion in some way. Even if they were a good kid and like only slightly rebelled.
Yes.
Like there was the why of being a millennial for sure.
Yeah, that question of just like, but why are we doing it this way? Is this the most efficient way? Why do I have to work 40 hours at least a week until I'm too old to do anything? And that's the good plan. Like that's what we're doing. And so when we ask why to that, and now you see more people who are working from home or like stacking their work where it's like, oh, I'm going to do a bunch of work for this part of the year and be able to have this part of the year off. Like,
so the difference between us and the younger generation is that, and I wonder why this exactly is in your mind. I don't know if it's definitely pandemic too, but like they were very much about mental health and always have been.
Yes.
And they're like, no, you're going to pay me. Because labor is worth X, and this is my value. And I think there's this really great trope, because I actually don't think that millennials are as harsh on Gen Z. I don't know. This is my opinion, because I'm not. Because I think we want to be friends with them.
Yes.
And they're pretty fucking hard on us. Like there's some like rumors that they're kind of like the new boomers.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, but that millennials are also the best bosses, because they're like, do you need time? Like, what do you need? And
we're more aware of the psychological
we're getting tired of that, Miles, though.
We are.
I got to be honest with you, because everyone I know who's trying to hire like consultants or like younger people to do certain kinds of labor jobs, they're like, look, you still have to fucking work.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. You're going through a hard time, but you have to fucking show up for me.
Still got to show up, and we got to do these things.
So little by little, I think people are getting a little bit, that was like an overcorrection.
Oh, sure. Sure. I mean, but that's kind of how we do it, right? Like the one generation will be like, oh, this messed up. Well, we're going to do it this way because that wasn't good. And then we overcorrect, and then we just keep batting it around until we get to the middle.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
So I think they might be the generation that finds the better middle ground.
But also, how lucky are we that we live in a country that we can have this much social, like I don't even know the word, because words are very charged these days.
They are.
And that's another thing I actually want to talk to you about, because, with Vulnerable, I just love the segues that I can move into understanding certain aspects of a person's career having certain vulnerabilities to it. Yeah. Comedy right now is very vulnerable.
Yeah.
True.
Yes.
You being up on stage saying things could cause you to get canceled.
Yeah.
So, like, how do you deal with that?
I mean, for me, it's more just a matter of the vetting process of the jokes that I write. My wife co-writes everything with me.
That's awesome.
So
props to the wife.
Big shout out. My wife is amazing.
What's her name?
Heather Weber. So she is fantastic.
Great
she's amazing.
Name.
She's an amazing wife.
Mama.
And she's an amazing mother. Yes. And she's been around since like close to day one with my career. So she knows the ins and outs of it. She gets it. And so being able to bounce ideas off of her of like, hey, I've got this idea for a joke. This is what I was thinking. And then she'll immediately poke holes in it to just like, well, yeah, but like, what about this perspective? Or like, you say this about these people in this joke. What if they say this to you? And then it's like, okay, well, now I know like the stability of the jokes. Whereas I think a lot of comics will just be like, oh, well, this is the joke. I'm just going to try it out. Here we go. That's it. And they don't vet it with anybody else who isn't them. So me being able to vet it with a woman who's been through a lot of stuff and like been through that side of things of being like in a lot of male dominated industries, she's got a lot of good perspective of just like, yeah, but what about this? And what about this? And so that really helps me get to a point where the joke is going to be as well thought out as humanly possible.